I want the car. Chicks dig the car. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Kapow! Oh no! Ah!
This is why Superman plays alone.
Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. Tonight on this very rainy evening, at least for me, we're going to be having a look at the Mcfarlane DC Multiverse Batman and Robin Build a Mr. Freeze wave. Whew, that's a mouthful. I'm probably one of the only people who's actually buying this wave, not just because they're actually really good damn figures. Batman and Robin is perhaps my favorite Batman movie of all time, and I'm saying that totally unironically. I sincerely enjoy the film. It was meant to be extremely campy, it's meant to feel like a giant toy commercial. It knows precisely what it wants to do, and it does that. After that, it's pretty much just a matter of taste. It's no longer a question as to whether it's a good or bad movie. It's just a matter of how much camp you can take before you throw up. These figures really are excellent. I mean, I got a few little gripes and a few little nitpicks here and there, but overall, they really are beautiful. But before we get into those, let's go ahead and look at just one box to get us started. So all the boxes in this wave are pretty much the same, although there are a few differences depending on which character we're talking about, although it is worth looking at because each of them do come with unique red flourishings to bring out that Batman and Robin aesthetic just a little bit, to contrast them a little bit more from the generic DC Multiverse packaging from Mcfarlane. We have Collect to Build Mr. Freeze. Number 1, this is Backgirl. In this case, she interestingly enough starts off the wave. As for how we'll be reviewing them, we'll just have to see what order they're in. But off to this side, you have the really awesome, underrated Batman and Robin logo. Got Batgirl over here, Batman and Robin. Off to this side, pretty standard, just got the Batgirl name over there in blue. But off to the back, here's where you get our differences. We have the big old card of Mr. Freeze. I really wish they just gave us an actual card for the Build-A-Figure. Then again, we'd be getting like 4 of them, one with each figure, so it would be a little awkward. But if you're like me and you scrap your boxes anyways, I was probably just going to cut this out and stick it in my little folder. And over here, it gives you a few instructions on how to build Mr. Freeze, although I'll give you a little image right here on what the pieces look like separately, because obviously I've assembled them already. But we have, with Batgirl, we've got the head, the shoulder pauldrons, and the freeze ray with the freeze blast. And then I believe with Poison Ivy, we've got the torso. With Robin, we got the arms. And with Batman, we got the legs. So that's what you need in order to build your Mr. Freeze. Going on down, you have the other figures in this wave looking absolutely fantastic. Collect them all, of course. As for the generic typical accessories, we first have our Mcfarlane stands, and yeah, you know how I feel about those, so we'll just add those to the collection, whatever. But then, of course, we also get 4 unique cards for our characters. We have Robin, Batman, Batgirl, and Poison Ivy over here, as portrayed by their respective actors. And each of them comes with a unique bio, so I'll go ahead. You can sort through those and read them if you would like. But it's nice how they give them unique bios, and they're not just recycling, for example, for Batman, the same generic bio that they give for every single Batman figure that they've done, and that is a very long laundry list of Batman figures that they have done. So it's nice that they're changing it up here, kind of similar to what they did with the Batman 6-pack that we looked at before. But anyways, there we are. So let's go ahead and start with Batman and Robin, because of course it's Batman and Robin, not Robin and Batman. Now here we are with George Clooney as Batman, an actor who I actually do not mind in the role. I think he fits into the very campy environment pretty okay. I think his acting overall is pretty solid. I know that everybody in the world is against me on that, but I've never minded him. I thought he worked pretty well, gave that whole family vibe to the movie that it was supposed to do, and yeah, I just enjoyed his performance. I'm sorry if you disagree, but as a figure, he's also very great, and he's one we're going to breeze through a little bit quickly because we have seen him before in the 6-pack, so this is going to be less a review on him, but more a comparison, but we'll go through him again, just because why not, and there are a few variations here. First thing that's up is we got the head sculpt, which looks fantastic. It definitely looks like George Clooney under there, especially with the eyes, if you can make that out. I'll let you go ahead and put in some effort. Zoom on in, you can see it's got all the highlights, the pupils all done, and then a nice brown. It looks fantastic. But the one thing that does bug me a little bit about this figure, which is nothing that can't be fixed with some hot water, is the ears are coiled in just because of the way it was packed. When you bring in the other one, you'll see that they're perfectly straight up, but again, drop it in some hot water, give it some heat, however you prefer, and those will straighten out no issue, I suspect. Going on down, bat nipples, of course. You got the abs. From what I heard, these character suits are actually meant to resemble Greek god statues, which kind of makes sense to me. And that kind of works when you consider how much we have romanticized superheroes over the years. They're pretty much our new gods, which might be a controversial thing to say. But yeah, we also got the abs, very chiseled, statuesque features. Got the fins off here on the arms, got the gloved fists right over there, and of course none of these come with any hands or hand accessories, except for some ice effects, which this Batman does indeed come with, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then here's the second difference, where instead of a soft goods cape like we saw with the six-pack, we have a solid one, which honestly I don't love. I think it looks okay, I like the shininess that is more accurate to the film, but it feels like it just has this really big, like, sheet of plastic behind him, which it effectively is, but I just feel like it's a little bit cumbersome. It's a little harder to pose him. It doesn't feel too natural, and I feel like it comes out a little too wide, so it just feels a little off to me, but I don't plan on keeping this one anyway. I'm probably going to gift it to my cousin, so cousin, if you're listening, you're going to get the worst of the Batman out there, so prepare for that. Moving on down, we got the bat belt over here with that same black bat logo that we also see up here on the chest, which I forgot to mention, but there it is. You have even more bat logos down here. I mean, that's kind of the Schumacher way. Take a logo and stamp it onto each costume at least 5 times, which, again, I really love. Makes them feel toy-like, and it was a movie meant to sell toys, so I'm never going to knock that. I love it so much. Then you also got shoes down there, and everything's done in a pretty nice, glossy midnight blue. I wouldn't quite call it black, but anyways, that's it for this figure. We're not going to go over articulation because we did that before, but when you put him beside the six-pack variant, here's where you can notice the differences. We'll put the heads together right here. You can see that the ears definitely coil in on the new release, whereas on the old, they go straight up as they should. So again, heat this up, it should go right up. As for the capes, it is a totally different story with each one. Let me know which cape you prefer in the comments, but odds are what I'm going to do is I'm going to gift this Batman, I'm going to keep this soft goods Batman, and probably get one of those wired capes I've talked about and have linked before in my previous tutorials. So probably going to get a wired cape for him. As for this guy, not sure how long he's going to stick around, but for now, I got 2 George Clooney Batmen, so make of that what you will. Now let's move on to Smash It Up with Chris O'Donnell's Robin, who I absolutely loved in Batman Forever and in Batman and Robin. I just thought he had a really good portrayal in terms of being kind of the bratty understudy to Batman, who feel like he deserves a lot more than he should, but yeah, he's just a great character, and everywhere he goes, there's, like, punk rock music playing. He's just a ton of fun. But anyways, I thought he also was a very good fit for the role, and he fit into the Batman and Robin campy aesthetic just fine, as everyone else did, honestly. I'm not going to peg anyone down here. But as for the head sculpt, I was a little bit worried, because in those initial promo shots, I don't know, for some reason, I felt like the hair sculpt went with the face a little bit off. But in this case, it looks like they did a fine job. Like, there's enough forehead, and there's enough hair. It doesn't feel like there's that imbalance at all, so that looks really good. Let me get to the domino mask, which also looks fantastic. Although one thing I'm just noticing right now is there's a little bit of a black line right there, which I'm not seeing until this point here, but it's not the worst thing ever. That's something you could probably scratch off, give that a shot. Little update in post, used my fingernail, came right off, so not a problem. Anyways, back to the review. Moving on in, we have some nice deep eyes right over here. It looks like they're blue. I can't quite tell. Yeah, I think they're blue. But as for the rest of the face sculpt, oh man, it's a dead ringer. I think they did a really good job here. As for the hair, I also really love what they did here. Of course, it's molded in brown, but it looks like they gave it a little bit of a red and black wash of some sort to bring out those details a little bit more, which looks absolutely fantastic. Moving on out, you can go on down, and of course you've got the titular Robin logo embossed across the pecs. Again, you got some Robin nipples, which is pretty much the Schumacher way by this point, and you should expect that. Then going on to the rest of the arms. Actually, one thing I wanted to point out is we do have butterfly joints, but here they're completely done in red to match up with the rest of the logo. I suspect if they did just a stripe of red to match the logo as it goes onto the arms against a whole sea of black, it would be very annoying to keep rotating it back to where it needs to be. So if they had to go one way or the other, I'm glad they just went with straight red. So I'm totally fine with that. Down to the arms, continues with red, and you also have 3 fins for his arms, not just 2, unlike George Clooney's Batman, who we just had a look at. Got a 6-pack over there, got the same belt, I'm pretty sure. Down to the legs, pretty streamlined, not a whole lot going on, more spandexy. But then down to the boots, again, we get more Bat logos, because of course we do. Or I guess in this case, it's Robin logos, isn't it? Over to the back, we get a solid cape, and that's another weird thing I wanted to talk about. I find it very odd how, you know, usually lines, they usually either go with solid capes or with soft goods capes. But in the case of Todd McFarlane, he's kind of flipping back and forth. I'm not totally sure why he's doing that. But for me, like, even though I am a soft goods person almost all the way through, I do wish he'd kind of just choose one and stick with it so we always know what to expect. But anyways, that being said, I actually really like the solid cape on this Robin figure. I like how it's a little bit shorter, so it doesn't go all the way to his feet. And that means it doesn't restrict his articulation quite as much. You can get him crouching down a little bit more if you wish. It looks like it's a little bit more of a swoopy motion, so it doesn't get in the way of the arms or anything. That looks really good. It's kind of a similar pose to one of the posters that's out there. Actually, I do have a Batman and Robin poster. I'll screenshot that over here so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyways, moving on, let's go ahead and talk about articulation, because once again, no accessories with this guy, except for some blue freeze effects, which we will talk about again a little bit later. But over here, we have a swivel. We have down, up, little bit of tilt. As for the arms, again, it's butterflies, so they go all the way around. Got a little bit of in and out. It's actually excellent articulation all the way around. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. You have interchangeable up, down, or left, right wrists right in there. As for the torso, we got a ball joint. That much back, that much forward. Got some tilt. Down to the waist. We also have a swivel down there as well. As for legs, full splits. As for knees, double jointed, a little stiff, but it's in there. Which was back on in. And then we got, of course, for the ankles, we got back, forward, swivel, toe articulation, and then we got our usual patented rocker. This is a really excellent figure. Again, the only thing he and the rest of them needs are more hands and more accessories, like some batarangs or wingdings wouldn't have been out of place. But, oh well, this is what we got, but they still are fantastic figures. Figures I've been dreaming of since my grade school days. So really, I'm just very giddy and excited for all of them, really. Now let's finish up our Heroes Gallery by moving on to Alicia Silverstone's Backgirl, which I think for me was the biggest surprise of all the figures. I don't know, I guess it's because she's the character we saw the least of in the film. Of course, the actress herself was throughout the film, but we didn't see Backgirl until pretty much the third act. But because we saw so little of her, I didn't really have time to admire the costume, which looks absolutely fantastic. But now that we got it in plastic form, you can admire every inch of its latex glory. So let's start up over here at the head sculpt. Again, pretty good likeness to the actress. I wouldn't call it photoreal, but whatever it is that Mcfarlane's doing, I think they're doing an absolutely excellent job. Again, you got the usual domino mask. I'm wondering if they're going to do other variants of these figures with, of course, the ice suits. Then in her case, you could give her an alternate head sculpt with the bat cowl to go over her head. But in this case, you got her golden locks. And one thing that I really love that they did is they gave her a little bit of a dark gray wash up at the front of the hair to give it a little bit more variation. Something which I wish would have translated over to Poison Ivy, but we'll get to her when we do. But it is a very beautiful head sculpt going all the way around. There's some little spots where it gets really shiny, like right there, if you could see that. But, I mean, it's not noticeable at all. Looks like little fluxes of just shiny gold, I suppose, but it looks very good. Moving on to the torso, you've got her shapely female features, if I may call it that, but Schumacher really wanted to punch out. But yeah, the rest of it, it's got some really nice creases and zippers, just these really good details that were really hard to see in that very dark scene in the Turkish bath battle where she's fighting Poison Ivy. It's just a little bit dimly lit. We couldn't quite make out all these little crisp, finer nuances throughout the suit. And you got like the 3 guards over there. You got her fists, similarly gloved to Batman and Robin as well. Down here we got the bat belt, a little thinner than it was on her 2 counterparts. And down here we got some boots which are a lot higher than I remember them being, but they look fantastic. They articulate well, so that's all I care about. Somehow they managed to also squeeze in Bat logos at the top of these boots as well. And going on down, he got some high heels. Don't know how efficient they are in combat, but they're there and they look great. And something else that does look great is, once again, same philosophy here with whether I prefer soft goods or hard plastic capes. But in this case, because it's shorter, I actually prefer it the way that it is. We got the cape here, and I really do love this sculpt. It's all wrinkly, it's got the fraying at the bottom, it looks like it's seen some action even though it's a brand new suit. I don't know, it just works for me. It doesn't get in the way of articulation much at all, so that's fantastic. Moving on to articulation, I suspect he won't have a ton in the head. He got more tilt this way than the other, but that's alright. As for swivel, yeah, you could probably get a 360 if you really pushed it. A lot of down, but not any back whatsoever between the hair and the cape. It's just not in the picture. As for the arms, we got 360, although it gets blocked by the hair. They come out that much, back in. If I miss a joint here and there, I apologize. I mean, we're going through 5 figures here, but you know what to expect with Mcfarlane. They're pretty consistent when it comes to articulation. The elbows are double jointed. As for the wrists, they got in, out, up, down, as per usual. Torso, ball jointed, a lot forward, a lot back, great tilt. You also have a swivel down there in the waist. Down to the hips, we've got the legs doing a full split. They kick forward that much, doing a 90. As for knees, they double joint. As for the ankles, we got back, forward. We got toe articulation as well. And then we also have, it's a little hard to find, but there is some rocker. Why does this need a ratchet? I guess it's because we got high heels on Alicia Silverstone. The ratchets allow her to stand just a little bit better. So it's a nice little thing for them to pay attention to when they were engineering this figure. So good on Mcfarlane in this case. That's a +1 for me. The last of the standard figures that we're looking at today is Poison Ivy, as portrayed by Uma Thurman, and it might be the best figure in the wave. I don't know, it really depends on what you want to talk about, whether it be the sculpt work, the painting, or whatever, but in terms of paint, she definitely takes the cake, or would it be a vegan cake because of the plant thing? But I don't know. But anyways, moving on. We got a beautiful head sculpt and a very good likeness, which is pretty much what can be said across all the figures. You got those green eye things. I still don't know what they're called, let alone how they attach to her head, but whatever, they look very good. Then my one complaint with this figure, and this is kind of brought on because of how well the hair was done on Robin and Backgirl, is the hair. I think it's sculpted great, but if they did a little bit of that shading work, did a dry brush or something, that would really take it to the next level. But unfortunately, they didn't do that here, and I can't imagine why, because on Backgirl, we got the airbrush right there, and on Robin, we had a little bit of that dry brushing right there. So if they would have gone either way or used both on this hair sculpt, imagine how good that would look. Especially when you compare it to the rest of the outfit, which is painted in so beautifully, bringing out each leaf around here in the torso area. I just think that would have looked so good if that same effort was brought up to the hair. Especially when you got down here to the stockings, and it also looks like it's a little bit stressed in the fabric and everything. You got the leaf details over here, the vines. It's just an excellently done figure, but an inconsistent one once you get up to the head sculpt. But that's really my only complaint with this figure, again, excluding the fact that we only have 2 hand options. But speaking of that, let's continue going from head to toe in terms of admiring all the good details on this figure. Down here on the arms, we got some sleeves, gloves, whatever it is you want to call them. On this hand, we have a little leaf patch for the pheromone dust that she uses in the film. So you can get it up to her mouth to blow it out and seduce her victims if you wish. This hand, just a generic gripping hand, nothing for her to hold, unfortunately. But if you have, like, a vine accessory or something like that, then you could do that. Or if you want her, you know, holding Mr. Freeze's rocks, you could do that as well. Going down, we already talked about the stockings a bit, but they look fantastic. It's like 3 different colors. You got like a pale green, we have a darker mossy green, then it transitions all the way to black, and I think that looks absolutely beautiful. And then once again, we got high heels. Both female figures have the high heels. Again, don't know how good they are in combat, but then again, Poison Ivy's a lover, not a fighter. Let me know if I've said too many Batman and Robin quotes by this point. Moving on to articulation, again with the head, we're going to have a little bit of trouble because of the hair sculpt, but if you hold it right there, we can do a little bit of the twists right there. got not really any tilt. She's got some forward, but I feel like the hair sculpt kind of pushes her back up, and definitely no back at all. So the head's definitely the weak point, but it's meant more for looks and for moving around more than anything, I guess. As for the arms, they also got their butterfly joint, so they come up a little past 90 and down, swivel all the way around. This one's going to be a bit more hindered, though. There is a swivel in the bicep that's hidden right where it meets the rest of the glove, which is fantastic, so you can do that. Double jointed elbows. As for the wrists, up, down, left, right, whatever it is you prefer. As for the torso, it looks like there's a joint under the chest, but can we get to it? We can, and I love how seamless it looks on behalf of that paint and sculpt job, looking really great. With the torso joint and also the waist joint combined, she goes out much far back, that much far forward. She's got a crazy amount of tilt, just a very dynamic figure. As for legs, full splits. I actually poked my hand on her fingers a little bit there. Let's get those out of the way. As for the knees, double jointed. As for the ankles, we got back, forward, to articulation, and also some rocker. In this case, there's no ratchet, unlike Backgirl, which I find very interesting, considering they both have the heels, but whatever. It's a very good figure. Fantastic. Wish they did something more with the hair, though. But other than that, I love it. It's a great, great figure. Last, but definitely not the least, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger portraying Mr. Freeze, the main showcase of this entire wave, and it is a very beautiful figure, and the figure of my childhood dreams. I've always wanted a figure of this specific Mr. Freeze, and in this case, got all the proportions right, they got all the sculpting well done. The one complaint that I have, as many others do, is I wish they went more the chrome route. I wish they would have done something that's a little bit more shiny, a little less flat, I guess, a little less marbly in the silvers, but anyways, enough of that being said, that's pretty much just throughout the figure, except though on the head sculpt, which again looks just like the actor. It's almost a dead ringer. I think they did a very good job. Of course, if you watch a movie, he's got like almost twinkliness to the skin. They can't really do that here, but that's okay. That's a detail that I don't really need on this figure. I think everything else here on the head sculpt just supersedes that in every way, shape, and form, but I think the head sculpt is easily the best part of this figure, and one of the best parts of this entire wave. For some reason, it's a darker silver than everything else, I guess because it's painted on silver, and not molded silver. Like down here on the shoulder, which is molded in silver, you can see it's a lot more pale, doesn't quite have that reflectiveness that this head sculpt has, so there is that contrast, which I don't really love. I wish they would have gone full on silver paint that they did up here and did that to the rest of everything else. But that being said, another thing I love about the head sculpt is this blue translucent shell that they have going on around his face. I don't know what you'd call it, but his face is exposed, but then the rest of his head is covered, and that illusion is sold very well with these different pieces of plastic that they have going on. I just think they did an absolutely stellar job. Going on down to the torso, there's a lot to look at. As for the shoulder pads, one thing I did want to mention is, in case for those who are wondering, they're attached with 2 pins, one on the front, one on the back. Right there, you can see the little porthole, and they're very easy to pop on and off, just like so, no issue at all. And going down, I mean, just go ahead and enjoy the eye candy. They got all the details in there. They did paint in the blue areas that are supposed to be glowing in the film. Obviously, you can't have them glowing here. That would just be very difficult to do. It would probably restrict a lot of articulation. But the blue is a little bit flat, similarly to the silver. I kind of wish they would have had separate pieces of this blue plastic, then translated them down to here. But then again, I might be nitpicking. That might just be very difficult to do. It might be very expensive for a Build-A-Figure. But that being said, still looks really good. I mean, we got body glove under there, kind of similar to a Stormtrooper or Clone Trooper, which you can make out on all the joints on this figure. Got the glowing pecs up at the top. Going around, we actually have a lot of marbling, which you can see there, and that is something that could be cured with a paint job. And speaking of paint job, go ahead in the comments and let me know what paints you've used for Mcfarlane figures if you're a customizer, because I would love to give this guy a chrome paint job. I just don't know what the right materials would be. Part of me is thinking I could use some of those oil-based marker pens, or paint pens, paint markers, whatever the hell they're called, and then use those, just do one piece at a time. So that's something I'd want to do, but That'd be quite an upheaval of a task, so let me know if you've tried that before and if it's worked out well for you and what brand you used. Because that's something I'd love to do, and something a lot of others would love to do as well. But anyways, getting back to the figure, one thing I did want to point out is the asymmetry in the arms. That gives him a little bit more story. On this side, we have this little capsule over here, which I believe is where he stores his diamonds to power his suit, because comic character is a comic character. And then over here, you have this little panel which hides the treatment for McGregor syndrome, which I think is very well placed. I think that's really cool, and it's accurate to the film, so that's very good to see. Going on down to the legs, there's no, like, Mr. Freeze logo or anything per se, but he does have two really big honkin' boots. How Arnold was able to walk around in this thing, I have no idea, but from what I heard down the grapevine, I think it cost $1 to $2 million to produce a suit. I'm not sure how true that is, but I believe it. I mean, look at this thing. Jeez, it's really ornate. It would look even more ornate if it was in silver or chrome, though. Let's go ahead and move on to articulation. So as for the head sculpt, he's got a little bit of tilt, not too bad. Got some down, got some up. As for the shoulders, they, of course, have the shoulder pauldrons, but they're not really in the way. As you can see, they swivel all the way up and to get in the way, out of the way of the arms. They come out to 90. Got a bicep, no bicep swivel, interestingly enough, but a butterfly joint pretty much gives you everything that you need. It's pretty huge. We got a single jointed elbow. I mean, it's a chunkier figure, so, and he's armored up in a certain way that I guess it would be difficult to do that, but I mean, I don't imagine he'd be able to move much further than this anyway, so I'm totally alright with that. As for the wrists, up, down, left, right, whatever it is you prefer. Torso, we got that much forward, that much back, and good amount of tilt. Probably more than he'd be able to manage in real life if I had to guess. As for legs, you can do splits, go back in, you kick that much forward, almost at 90, and that's because this piece in the middle, the cod piece, is very flexible. It's a very stretchy plastic, so be a little careful with that, but also use it to get him into some good photo shots. As for the knees, they are single jointed, definitely not getting anywhere close to 90. As for the feet, they're very difficult to articulate because there's a very strong ratchet joint in there, but you can go that much back, and that much forward. Got a toe joint right there. And then he's also got plenty of rocker. So, very beautiful looking figure. And, of course, he comes with a freeze ray, which is done in the same silver. He's also got the freeze effect right in there that you can take out and then pour it back in. It is keyed, so you do have to pour it in a very specific way to get it in there, but looks pretty accurate to the film. And now it's a freeze ray and not a freeze gun, I guess, which is why Mcfarlane was allowed to produce it, despite Warner Brothers not letting them produce firearms, but I guess this is a special case, so whatever, we got him to have his very important freeze ray. I was kind of concerned that we'd have to go to the other Mr. Freeze they did before and give him that blaster, but in this case, you can get that blaster in his hand, no problem. And if you want a two-handed pose, that is very easily accomplished. Do it just like so, and there we are. Part of me wishes that we had a larger freeze effect, maybe one that comes a little bit more outstretched, but we can kind of accomplish that when we go ahead and look at some alternate accessories that also came with these figures. Here we are again with our three heroes in peril with three really awesome ice effects, or I guess technically four, because Batman came with two freeze fist effects, and Robin came with a face and shoulder freeze effect, along with an arm freeze effect, and all of them are pretty much interchangeable across all three characters, although it's going to be a case-by-case basis as to whether or not they'll fit. For this freeze effect, I don't think it would go on as well on Backgirl, of course, because she has the head sculpt right there with the hair, so that might be a little difficult to do, but does go on the Batman just fine. And as for the fist effects, you could probably put that on any Mcfarlane figure that you want, as well as the arm effect over there. And what I was saying with this freeze effect is if you took that off Batgirl and we brought back in Mr. Freeze, you could kind of get that on his freeze ray and almost make it look like it's a longer blast coming out. But I don't know, it's kind of your preference. It's not the best looking thing ever, but if you toy around with it, pun intended, yeah, it can kind of look like a bigger blast if you wanted it to. So if you don't want that on your figures, you can get that on his blaster, and there you go. You get a bigger freeze effect. So plenty of options here. Just a lot of fun and gives it more of that toy feel. Here we are at size comparisons. We're not going to go too crazy just because we have 5 figures to look at, and one of them is basically a re-release of a figure we've done size comparisons with in the past, so pretty much we're just going to be using Batman to give ourselves a little bit of a gauge. But yeah, I mean, I'm not the type of person to nitpick like how tall a specific actor is at a certain period in time, but yeah, I think the heights here are pretty well done. I feel like maybe Uma Thurman could be a little bit on the tall side, but then again, she is wearing high heels, so keep that in mind. So it puts her pretty much level with George Clooney, which feels a little bit odd, but then again, she's got those shoes, so that kind of adds up when you think about it. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the tallest of the bunch, and he also has those really big, bulky boots. But of course, no size comparison is ever complete without our best friend, Star Wars Black Series, Mechamuck!
The Iceman cometh!
Yeah, I bet you don't know what the Scarecrow's favorite band is!
You're not cooling me down with one of your fancy riddles.
The Smashing Pumpkins!
Uh-oh.
Is it right where you are? And the people change!
Let's go ahead and wrap up this review, as topically enough my fridge is just kicked up in gear, so if you're hearing a weird buzzing sound in the background, that's what that is. Honestly, there's not a single loser in this way for me. Like, yeah, there are a few little tweaks that I would prefer here and there. Like, for example, I wish that Mr. Freeze was on the chromier side, I wish that Uma Thurman had a wash going through the hair, and I wish that the Batman maybe had more pointy ears and the cape was a soft goods substitute, but that being said, I think they're all fantastic and a ton of fun, very well executed. And honestly, when it comes to the Batgirl and the Robin, I have absolutely no issues with them whatsoever. I think they're both executed to a T, very well done. Together, all 5 of these figures are, they make me so damn happy, guys, I can't even express it. But then again, as much as I love these figures, there's still a big old Bane-shaped hole in my heart. Contrary to what Poison Ivy said about every Poison Ivy figure coming with Bane directly in the film, they've never actually released a figure of that Bane, not in the 90s and not today. So that's really the last missing piece of the puzzle here if they don't go ahead and do the ice-suited variants of the heroes over here, or also a variant of Mr. Freeze, or the many variants of Poison Ivy. We need a big old Bane. You know, the big old teddy bear Bane, not the Tom Hardy, right? And I imagine if they ever did that Bane, he'd be like a gold label or something, maybe an in-store exclusive. Hopefully he wouldn't be too hard to get. But the 5 of these together, a ton of fun, a ton of laughs. They're excellent. Highly recommend them. So, anyways, all that being said, if you enjoyed this review, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like! Comment!
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals. And subscribe.
This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.